farming rabbits does not compare well to farming any other animal. Therefore, there are a lot of potential mistakes to be made by new rabbit breeders. In every aspect of rabbit farming, there are things that can go wrong. In this video, we are going to go over the basic mistakes involved with rabbit breeding. Between breeding, feeding, caging, biosecurity, and selling, there are a lot of mistakes to be made while rabbit farming. If you are new to this channel, please hit the subscribe button for more content like this. The most mistakes that can be made while farming rabbits is probably while breeding. There are lots of aspects involved with breeding and many simple tricks that most new breeders likely don't know about. We asked other rabbit farmers and members of Princely Agriculture Academy what their biggest mistakes were when they started breeding, and we are excited to share their wisdom with you. The first problem is not purchasing quality breeding stock in the beginning. Many breeders have mentioned that they regret not purchasing quality rabbits when they started breeding. Buying good quality rabbits in the beginning can save you many generations of improvement in the future. Good quality stock will look very different depending on what you're breeding for. But finding a breeder who keeps good records and culls hard in order to meet their goals will be beneficial. The following breeding mistake is keeping poor records and not setting goals. Recording dates is extremely important. It helps you know the actual dates to put in the litter box for your pregnant does. Information kept on a doe's breeding record tells you if she has conceived on a regular basis during the year, if she is prolific, and has the ability to properly nurse and care for her litters. It is important to keep an accurate buck breeding record to know if he has settled all of his does during the year. Setting goals for your rabbitry will help keep you on a path and make your journey there more efficient. It is easy to get lost in the flow of daily chores while farming rabbits. That's why it is important to set a direction for your rabbitry. The third breeding mistake is bringing the buck to the doe while breeding. Rabbits are very territorial and can become aggressive while protecting their space. In order to avoid fighting while breeding, you must bring the doe to the buck. The buck will most likely be more interested in breeding than defending his space, although there can be aggressive bucks too. Even if your doe is not protective over her cage, the buck can be more interested in smelling around the new area rather than breeding. Additionally, if a young buck is brought to a doe's cage and she attacks him, he can be scared into never trying to breed again. So, to avoid most issues, it is recommended to always bring the doe to the buck's cage. The following breeding mistake is starting with too many rabbits or too many breeds. There isn't another livestock animal that really compares to farming rabbits. So, they can quickly become overwhelming if you don't have the basics down. It's easy to buy or keep every cute rabbit. But doing this will greatly increase your feed bill and could lower the rabbit's quality of life. It's important that you have a thorough understanding of basic rabbit care before your hands are overflowing with them and you run out of cage space. Now moving on to the feeding mistakes that farmers make when farming rabbits. Rabbits have sensitive digestive systems that can easily be thrown out of whack and cause serious issues. Therefore, many mistakes can be made by new breeders who are not accustomed to rabbits' dietary needs. The first mistake most farmers make is overfeeding, and breeders becomes too fat. Reproductive ability decreases when rabbits are overweight and birthing difficulty increases. When a rabbit is too fat, the fat builds along its reproductive organs. For does, this means the fallopian tubes are restricted and it is more difficult for eggs to pass through them, which leads to smaller litters. If the overweight doe is successful in pregnancy, it will likely be a small litter. The small litter will consist of larger kits because the nutrients are spread across fewer individuals. Consequently, when it comes to kindling, the doe will have a more difficult time birthing the kits because her birth canal is surrounded by fat and the kits are large. This can lead to death in the kits, the doe, or both. So, it is important to keep a strict feeding regime while farming rabbits. Just make sure they are consuming the amount of nutrients they need to sustain themselves. The following feeding mistake is changing diet too fast. Rabbits have a very sensitive digestive tract. This means that any drastic change in feeding can quickly upset their digestive system and cause health issues, even death. When switching pellets, it is important to do so very slowly. It is also important to not introduce treats or vegetables too quickly. The next group of mistakes that new rabbit farmers makes is in the caging sector. The majority of caging mistakes when farming rabbits happens when first setting up your rabbitry. Without a mentor, it can be difficult to know how you want your rabbit cages set up before bringing your rabbits home. The first mistake is not being prepared for predators. Rabbits are prey animals and their predators come in all shapes and sizes. When setting up your cages, you should account for the predators in your area. Things like rats and snakes can fit through some cage wire, whereas skunks and raccoons may dig into your cages or open latches. Birds of prey should be taken into consideration if you are farming rabbits in a colony with an open top. Barn cats can also be an issue if they can reach through your cage wire and grab kits. 10. Having the wrong cages or not enough cage space. If you have never heard of rabbit math, it is a real thing. You will likely want to keep all of the cute little fluffs in your first few litters. Many breeders have mentioned that they wished they started with more cages or the right cage, instead of trying to find space for rabbits down the line. Taking the time to set up your ideal rabbitry in the beginning will increase your quality and efficiency down the line. The following sector is biosecurity mistakes that rabbit farmers make when farming rabbits. Rabbits contract diseases easily. Therefore, we need to have a plan to prevent illness and disease while farming rabbits. The first biosecurity mistake is failing to quarantine new rabbits. When building your rabbitry, it is important to have an area where you can quarantine new rabbits. There are many diseases and illnesses rabbits can transfer to each other. So, any new rabbits should be separated from your existing rabbits for at least 30 days. Skipping this step can be detrimental to the rabbits you already have and has the potential to cause serious illness or even death. The following biosecurity mistake is not having an emergency first aid kit. Unfortunately, raising any type of animal typically comes with some sort of accident or illness eventually. The best way to be prepared is to have a first aid kit or medical box while farming rabbits. What you keep in your medical box may look very different compared to others, depending on your preferred treatment methods. The best way to get a start on your first aid kit is to get familiar with the potential illnesses in your area. You can achieve this by researching online or talking to a local breeder. Talking to an agriculture-based vet may also give you more insight. The last array of mistakes involves the selling mistakes when selling rabbits. If you are planning to sell rabbits that you raise, there are some precautions that can be taken so that you do not waste your time and money while looking for buyers. The first selling mistake is choosing to not take deposits. You don't need to take deposits when selling rabbits. But many breeders have chosen to require deposits due to buyers not showing up when it comes to selling time. If you travel to meet your buyers, it can become time-consuming and irritating when buyers don't show up. Taking a deposit towards the final cost of the rabbit will make sure the buyer has some skin in the game and will provide more reliable buyers. The last mistake on the issue of selling is not having a selling contract. Selling contracts also aren't always necessary, but may be needed if you are selling rabbits often. Things like refunds, for deposits or otherwise, health guarantee limitations, and not altering tattoo numbers can be included in your contract. Conclusion. Breeding, feeding, caging, biosecurity, and selling while farming rabbits can all be problematic for new breeders. Rabbits are a fairly difficult species to get the hang of, and hopefully, after watching this video, you will have a better idea of how to prevent these mistakes. Hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you don't miss any future content. Once again, hit the subscribe button.